What if an entire civilization disappeared beneath the ocean? A civilization so advanced that even today people are still searching for it. For over 2,000 years, Atlantis has remained one of history's greatest mysteries. The first written trace of Atlantis arrives not from a lost map or a weathered ruin, but from the mind of a single philosopher. Around 360 BC, in the heart of Athens, Plato sits down to write. His words, preserved in the dialogues known as Timaeus and Critias, become the foundation of a mystery that will haunt the world for millennia. Atlantis is not introduced as a cold fact or a dry chronicle. Instead, it slips into the conversation between thinkers, wrapped in layers of storytelling and debate. Plato's account claims to come through a chain stretching back to the lawgiver Solon, who, according to the text, learned of Atlantis from Egyptian priests. Yet the story is presented as part of a philosophical dialogue, not as a standalone history or a traveler's report. In Timaeus, Atlantis emerges as a grand and powerful island civilization, rich in resources and ambition. The description is vivid: an empire larger than Libya and Asia combined, a naval force that once challenged the world. But the fate of Atlantis is even more dramatic. Plato writes of a single day and night of catastrophe, when the entire island is swallowed by the sea and vanishes without a trace. This is not just a tale of lost glory, but a warning about pride, excess, and the collapse of empires. The story does not unfold as a complete narrative. The second dialogue, Critias, breaks off abruptly, mid-sentence, just as Zeus is about to pass judgment on Atlantis. Whether this was due to Plato's death or a deliberate choice, the unfinished ending only deepens the enigma. Readers are left with questions. Was Plato recounting a distant memory, inventing an allegory, or hinting at secrets lost to time? The form he chose, a dialogue between philosophers, invites speculation. Is Atlantis a coded lesson, a philosophical mirror, or a puzzle meant to be solved? The search for answers begins here, with Plato's pen and the echo of a vanished world. Plato's account draws its power from the details he chose to record. In Timaeus and Critias, the philosopher sets Atlantis not in some vague mythical realm, but beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. This is a deliberate clue, anchoring the lost world on the far edge of the known world, out in the Atlantic, where maps faded into sea monsters and speculation. Size becomes the next astonishment. The island, so the text insists, was larger than Libya and Asia together. In Plato's time, that meant a landmass dwarfing all of North Africa and the entire sweep of the Near East, a scale that defies ordinary geography, and has sent generations of searchers scanning coastlines and sonar maps for any sign of a vanished continent. The city itself is described with almost architectural precision. At the heart of Atlantis, a capital rises in a pattern of concentric rings, 3 of water and 2 of land, linked by bridges and canals. The rings are not a symbolic flourish. They are a challenge, a blueprint for anyone hoping to find Atlantis on the seabed or in the ruins of an ancient port. The story lingers on details: the gleaming walls faced with orichalcum, the vast harbors crowded with ships, the temples and palaces glittering in the sun. But it is the ending that stuns. Plato claims Atlantis fell in a single day and night of misfortune, swallowed by the sea, leaving nothing but mud and memory. No gradual decline, no slow erosion, just sudden total obliteration. These are the clues. A western location, a colossal scale, a ringed city, an empire erased in hours. Not one of these has been confirmed by archaeology, yet each detail stands as a riddle. In the search for Atlantis, every expedition, every theory, will be measured against the words Plato left behind. Atlantis rises in Plato's dialogues not as a fantasy, but as a civilization defined by order and abundance. Its power is measured in more than military might. Kings rule from a throne of hierarchy, each generation inheriting a system designed to last forever. The city's wealth is legendary, with precious metals, fertile fields, and a navy that dominates the sea. Canals and bridges lace the capital in perfect circles, a geometry of control and ambition. Temples gleam with orichalcum and gold. Every structure, every law, every ritual is meant to show the world a vision of flawless prosperity. But beneath the surface of this engineered harmony lies a vulnerability. The story does not linger on individuals or heroes. Instead, it presents a society so confident in its own perfection that it cannot see the edge it walks. Prosperity becomes its own danger. The kings of Atlantis, once just and wise, begin to drift from the laws that made their empire strong. The more Atlantis grows, the more it hungers for conquest and excess. Its rulers forget the balance that held their world together. Plato's account is careful to show that greatness carries a price. The Atlanteans are not monsters, but people seduced by their own success. Order becomes arrogance, abundance becomes greed. The system that once promised stability now teeters, fragile beneath the weight of its own ambition. The stage is set for disaster, and the sense of unease is impossible to ignore. Atlantis stands at the height of its power, but every detail whispers that something is about to break. The world of Atlantis does not end with a slow decline. Its story halts on the edge of catastrophe, as if time itself is cut short. One moment, a city of order and ambition stands at the height of its power. The next, it is gone. Not a ruin, not a fading echo, but an absence so abrupt that the very idea of Atlantis becomes a wound in history. Plato's account lingers on this instant, an entire civilization erased in hours, leaving nothing behind but the silence of the sea. This is the moment that transforms Atlantis from legend to mystery. The suddenness of its loss is what keeps the search alive. No gradual decay, no warning, just a vanishing so complete that it defies explanation. The city's disappearance is not merely a detail, it is the reason the story endures. If Atlantis had simply faded, it would be a lesson in decline. Instead, it becomes a question without an answer, a gap that refuses to close. The unfinished nature of Plato's dialogue only sharpens this sense of incompletion. Critics and believers alike return to the same questions. What could destroy an entire world in a single night? Was this an allegory for human pride, or the memory of a real disaster? The lack of evidence, no stones, no inscriptions, no trace beneath the waves, draws a line between what is known and what is imagined. The legend survives in that space, fueled by the hope that something, somewhere, might still be waiting to be found. Atlantis remains present precisely because it is absent. Its disappearance is the engine of the mystery, a challenge that has outlived every answer offered so far. Debate over Atlantis begins not with its ruins, but with the meaning behind Plato's words. For most scholars, the story stands as a philosophical allegory, a crafted warning about the dangers of pride and unchecked ambition. Pierre Vidal-Naquet, a leading classicist, calls Atlantis a myth invented by Plato to mirror the rise and fall of empires. The details, the colossal size, the gleaming orichalcum, the instant destruction, are seen as literary devices, not blueprints for explorers. In this reading, Atlantis is a mirror held up to Athens, a lesson wrapped in myth meant to provoke reflection rather than a search for lost stones. Plato's political philosophy deepens this interpretation. In his Republican Laws, he sketches an ideal state ruled by philosopher kings, a society built on order and virtue. Atlantis, with its engineered perfection and sudden collapse, becomes a shadow to this ideal, a civilization that loses its way, corrupted by wealth and power. The dialogues set up a stark contrast. Early Athens, just and resilient, stands against Atlantis, which succumbs to excess. The destruction is not just a punishment, but a dramatic illustration of what happens when a society forgets its founding principles. Yet the story refuses to settle into allegory alone. A minority of scholars suggest that beneath the layers of philosophy, Plato may have preserved a distant echo of real catastrophe. The eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, around 1600 BC, unleashed a disaster on a scale that matches the legend's sudden doom. Some argue that memories of such an event, passed down through Egyptian or Near Eastern traditions, could have reached Plato's Athens centuries later. The idea of a historical kernel remains tempting, even if the evidence is thin. But caution rules the debate. The gap between Plato's writing and the supposed events, over 1,000 years, makes reliable transmission unlikely. No ancient inscription mentions Atlantis. No archaeological layer matches all the details. The story survives in the space between skepticism and hope, a puzzle that invites both doubt and wonder. This tension keeps the mystery alive, and the search for Atlantis is as much a question of meaning as of lost cities. Santorini rises from the Aegean like a broken crown, its cliffs curving around a drowned caldera. For many, this shattered island is the closest the real world has ever come to Atlantis. The theory is simple, but the evidence is anything but. In the late Bronze Age, around 1600 BC, Santorini, then known as Thera, erupted with a force that reshaped the world around it. Scientists measure the blast at a volcanic explosivity index of 6 or 7, one of the largest in recorded human history. More than 60 cubic kilometers of ash and pumice shot into the sky, darkening the sun and raining debris across the eastern Mediterranean. At the southern tip of the island, the city of Akrotiri was buried in an instant. Archaeologists have called it the Pompeii of the Aegean. Beneath layers of volcanic ash, they uncovered streets lined with multi-story homes, vibrant frescoes, and a drainage system that rivaled anything in the ancient world. The ash preserved Akrotiri so completely that even wooden beams and painted walls survived. There are no bodies, only the sudden silence of a city abandoned at the edge of disaster. But the eruption did more than erase a city. Tsunami deposits found on Crete and along the Aegean coast show that waves up to 30 meters high crashed onto distant shores. Models suggest that the blast and its aftermath could have crippled trade networks, shattered economies, and left entire regions in chaos. The tephra layer, black volcanic ash, appears in soil from Greece to Egypt, a geological fingerprint of the day the sky fell. Radiocarbon dating of olive branches and burned wood places the eruption between 1628 BC and 1600 BC. Dendrochronology, tree ring analysis, confirms the timing. Every branch and every ring tells the same story, a catastrophe on a scale that would echo for generations. Yet even with all this, the puzzle remains incomplete. Akrotiri was advanced, but small. Its streets are straight, not ringed. There are no vast canals or golden temples, no evidence of a city larger than Libya and Asia combined. The eruption was sudden and total, but it left no sunken continent, just a caldera, and memories buried in ash. Some archaeologists see in Santorini the seed of a legend, a disaster so great it could have inspired tales of a lost world. Others point to the gaps, the scale, the location, the missing rings. The evidence is powerful, but not conclusive. Santorini stands as the strongest real-world candidate, a catastrophe that matches the spirit, if not the letter, of Plato's Atlantis. The line between history and myth remains blurred, and the search for Atlantis continues, caught between what the earth reveals and what the imagination demands. Far from the volcanic cliffs of Santorini, the search for Atlantis stretches across continents and oceans. In the marshes and river deltas of southern Spain, Some archaeologists turn their attention to Tartessos, a Bronze Age culture near Cadiz. Excavations here reveal traces of ancient wealth, metalworking, and sprawling settlements. The Donata marshlands even hint at ringed structures, echoing Plato's concentric city. But the fit is never exact. Tartessos flourished centuries after the Thera eruption, and no record ties its people to a cataclysmic end. The geography is close, but not quite beyond the Pillars of Hercules as Plato described. Further west, the Azores rise from the Atlantic, shrouded in mist and volcanic rock. For generations, writers have wondered if these islands are the last peaks of a sunken continent. Their isolation and dramatic geology seem to invite speculation. Yet marine geologists find no evidence of a lost landmass or ancient civilization beneath the waves. The Azores offer a stage, but the actors are missing. Other theories cluster around the Mediterranean, with Malta, Sicily, and the coasts of Cyprus and Crete all proposed at one time or another. Each site matches a detail or two. Megalithic temples, lost harbors, echoes of ancient trade, but none satisfy all the clues. Size, age, location, and the story's sudden destruction. Every candidate falls short somewhere. The debate persists because every theory solves part of the puzzle, but none can close the case. The search for Atlantis remains a contest of fit and mismatch, a mystery that refuses to be pinned to any single shore. Proof in the world of lost cities is a demanding master. For archaeologists, it is not enough to find a stone wall deep beneath the waves or a scattering of ancient pottery. The standard is clear and unforgiving. To confirm Atlantis, a site must match the scale Plato described, an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, a city of concentric rings, a civilization with power and reach. The timeline must fit too. Secure dating to the Late Bronze Age, around 1600 BC, is essential. Without that anchor, any discovery drifts into legend. But even scale and age are only part of the puzzle. The material culture must speak a language all its own, distinct from Minoan, Mycenaean, or Egyptian finds. Pottery, architecture, inscriptions, each piece must point to an identity that matches Plato's vanished world. And then comes the most elusive requirement of all, a destruction layer. A sudden catastrophic deposit, whether ash, mud, or tsunami debris, must seal the city in the moment of its end. No known site, from Santorini to the Azores, satisfies all these demands at once. Underwater ruins without context are just that, ruins, stripped of their story. This is why the mystery endures. The legend of Atlantis stands at the crossroads of hope and evidence, suspended between what the imagination longs for and what the earth is willing to give. Lost worlds have always drawn us in. Atlantis stands out because it never quite settles, caught between history and imagination, and it changes shape with every new generation. Some see a warning about pride, others hear echoes of real disaster, like the eruption of Thera. The myth absorbs new theories, new hopes, and new doubts, refusing to fade even as evidence remains elusive. Books, documentaries, and endless debates keep the city alive, not as a fixed place, but as a question that refuses to be answered. For skeptics, Atlantis is a mirror reflecting the fears and ambitions of its storytellers. For believers, it's a promise that something extraordinary might still wait beneath the waves. Its endurance is less about proof and more about possibility. A golden age lost, a catastrophe remembered, a secret just out of reach. Atlantis survives because we need it to, a story that belongs to everyone, and to no one at all. Atlantis lives on, not as proof or myth, but as an open question. Plato first set the stage almost 2,400 years ago, and still no spade has uncovered certainty. Each new theory, from Santorini's shattered caldera to the depths of the Atlantic, adds fuel to an endless debate. The real mystery is not what was lost, but why we keep searching. What if the answer reveals more about us than any vanished city?